Question number 3 on the writing and language portion of College Board's Test 5. CT scanners use X-rays to map the surface of a fossil in minute detail, recording as many as 1 million data points to create a digital blueprint. A 3D printer then builds a polymer model based on this blueprint, much as a regular computer printer reproduces digital document on paper. Okay, so this 3D printer is building a polymer model. It's like a physical model, just like a regular printer, prints ink on paper. The writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should their sentence be kept or deleted? Whereas the head of an ordinary computer printer moves back and forth while printing onto paper, okay, and that makes sense, and the paper goes through, the corresponding parts of a 3D printer moves in multiple dimensions while squirting out thin layers of melted polymer plastic. And again, if you haven't seen how a 3D printer works, just Google it or watch a video on YouTube. It's pretty cool. So in this case, just whereas, but here's the contrast. Whereas is a contrast word. Whereas one thing does this, where it kind of just goes back and forth on a printer, on a piece of page, a 3D printer, on the other hand, is moving in all three directions, X, Y, and Z directions, in order to print out molten plastic. The plastic hardens quickly. So I like on how this sentence right after it is talking about plastic, which is referencing this squirts out thin layers of melted polymer plastic. This is the only time we're talking about plastic here, so I kind of like that. We probably should keep it based on just the continuity. I think that's the easiest way of doing these questions sometimes. When should we keep it or delete it? Realize what happens before and what happens after, and the continuity stays. It will make sense or it won't. Especially when we have a word here that directly ties into the part that's being underlined. Kept, because it helps explain why X-rays are used in CT scans. It does not. This does not explain why X-rays deal anything with CT scans. No. We're talking about 3D printers and their analogous, maybe the better understood normal printer. Kept, because it provides details to illustrate how a 3D printer works. I think it does. We're talking about what a 3D printer does. It moves in multiple dimensions and it squirts out polymer, melted plastic. And the next sentence says the plastic hardens quickly, so continuity is maintained. Deleted, because it contradicts the passage's information about digital blueprints. I don't know how it contradicts it or proves the main point of this paragraph wrong. It contradicts the passage information. The passage about digital blueprints says, a 3D printer up here then builds a polymer model based on this blueprint. The digital blueprint. Much as a regular computer printer produces digital documents on paper. It doesn't contradict it, it actually goes along and proves it. It's showing on how it's building this based on this model or this digital blueprint. So it's not contradicting anything, it's actually supporting what a digital blueprint is. D, deleted, because it creates confusion about how researchers gather data. This has nothing to do about how researchers gather data. It's just describing how a 3D printer works. I think we should keep it not only because it provides detail about how a 3D printer works, but also the context surrounding it is specific to this sentence. And if we don't have this sentence, we no longer know that a 3D printer, even though it builds a polymer model, how can you make the jump that that's plastic? That maybe is a little bit iffy for some people, especially for a test like this, because it's not asking you to know what a polymer necessarily is, even though right here they talk about a melted polymer plastic in the underlined portion. The answer number 3 is going to be B.